Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron, and yes, it has been a while since I've posted anything here on the channel. Things just got busy for me behind the scenes. I had a big performance come up. We did a couple of barrel picks. So at this point, over the last 5 or 6 weeks, we've done 3 barrel picks for the channel. So we're moving very quickly on that front, and I think we're going to pump the brakes just a little bit. And within all of that, we also managed to restructure the Patreon and add on some additional higher tiers with extra, rewards. So at this point, shameless plug, there's kind of a tier for everyone. If you want to help support the channel, Patreon is the best way to do that. $5, $10, $25, or $50 per month. Now also including barrel pick access and some other newer rewards, giveaways, all that kind of good stuff. And last but not least, we did manage to get a Discord server up and running. And I say managed to get one up because this guy is Discord illiterate, and I had a lot of help from a lot of people in the Patreon community to help me get that created. I wasn't a big fan of Discord, but now that we've got one, I think it's another great tool to continuing to build the Drums and Drams community. So check it out. Patreon, best way to support the channel. But now let's get away from the shameless plug and let's get into a pretty epic bourbon review. I think this is going to be a great one. I've gotten a lot of questions about this 2024 Michters 10-year bourbon, and we're going to hopefully answer some of those questions today. We've got a lot of comparisons to do as well. You can see on the table, I've got a 2023 A barrel here. I've got a sample of a 2023 E barrel, and also the Old Forester 1924, which a lot of folks like to throw in these Michters 10-year comparisons. Obviously, 10-year age dated, coming in at 94.4 proof or 47.2% ABV. This 2024 that I'm going to take a look at today is 24A0074. So it is an A barrel. I don't know if that matters for these 2024 editions. And for those of you wondering, why are we talking about letters and numbers? We will get into that at the end of the video. I don't want to muddy things up at the beginning here more than I already have. So let's just get into this 2024. I'll do a full review of this first, then we'll do the comparisons, then we'll do the speculation and all that kind of fun stuff. And hopefully in the comment section, you guys will let me know what you think about all this as well. But now on the nose, barrel 24A0074. Let's see what we get here. All right, so overall first impression of this whiskey is light, sweet, fluffy, airy, dessert. These are kind of the broad stroke notes that I get. You do smell quite a bit of age on this product. And it smells very delicious. It smells like, I mean, it really does smell like dessert. I'm getting like chocolate ganache, kind of like powdered sugar donuts. Some people might say confectioner sugar. There's a really nice fruit element here, but it's not a typical fruit element for me. Yeah, I would say in this case, I'm getting a lot of apricot, almost a little bit of a peach ring note. And that's something that a lot of folks have talked about on that Ben Holiday Bourbon Lore 18-barrel blend collaborative bottle that, a lot of whiskey tubers reviewed. A lot of folks have talked about peach notes and peach rings on that. I'm actually getting that here on this Michters 10-year bourbon. I think overall first impression on the nose is that this is a really sweet, highly aged product, but it does feel a little bit weak to me. Yeah, and definitely in the background, you do get that acetone note that I've picked up on previous editions of Michters 10-year bourbon. This is actually a Brown-Forman note. There is some speculation that they are sourcing this whiskey from Brown-Forman. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but you could absolutely convince me of that given the nose of this product. Overall, a great nose. I think it's suffering a little bit from the same kind of issue that pre-2023 Michters 10-year bourbons have suffered from, at least in my opinion, which is just that they don't feel high enough proof, and or the flavor concentration just isn't quite impactful enough for me to really fall in love with it. It just feels like it's striving to be great on the nose, but it doesn't quite reach the level of actually being great. So that's the first impression. Let's get it on the palate now and see what we get. Cheers. All right. The palate does pack a little bit of a punch at the front. There's a really nice kind of a gentle, inviting, but still powerful, I guess. That kind of sounds contradictory. Gentle, but powerful spice at the front. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, it's round, it's aromatic, it's inviting, And that's why I'm saying gentle, but it also still has enough of an impact to kind of drive the whiskey forward and develop it on the palate. Now, we are going to go back through and I'm going to catch some tasting notes along the way. But for me, that first sip is just to see, how does it drink? How does it punch the palate? And now I can kind of evaluate the finish on that first sip. Unfortunately, the finish on this is pretty non-existent. I would say it's a short finish, medium short at best. Whatever that means to you, imagine it. That's what it means, right? Medium short finish or short finish. It doesn't really linger with a lot of flavor. It just has a little bit of a spice kind of, in the back of the palate. But otherwise, I'm not left with much flavor, flavor notes or anything like that on my tongue or in my palate. So let's go back in for a second sip now. Cheers. All right. So yeah, this is starting off with those fluffy, airy, powdered sugar donut, dessert kind of notes. Kind of a light butterscotch as well. As it transitions into the mid palate, I'm getting more of that kind of chocolate ganache thing I talked about on the nose. And it's getting a little bit tart, I guess is maybe the word I want to use, on the mid palate. Like those fruit notes come to play. In this case, that apricot or peach ring note, definitely there. I think that's the predominant fruit note for me. But there's also kind of a berry preserves thing kind of weaving in there a little bit of this sour, sour mixed berry preserve thing. Again, very delicious stuff. There's a tinge of a bitterness at the end of the palate as it transitions into the finish. I actually like that in this case. It's kind of a little coffee thing. It keeps it interesting. It adds an extra dimension. And I think this whiskey needs all the help it can get as far as development goes, as far as, interest on the palate, to get your mind off the fact that it's kind of too easygoing, maybe a little too proof down, or if not that, maybe it's just that the flavor concentration is not quite there. I think it's a solid product. I think at the price point, $180 or so SRP. I mean, that is the absolute most I would want to pay for one of these. But please keep in mind, and I should have made this disclaimer at the beginning of the video, this is a single barrel product. All of the Michter's 10-year rye bourbons, these are single barrel products. And after doing, barrel picks for the channel now, having done some barrel picks for other folks, and just tasting single barrel products more broadly, I really have come to learn how much variance there is between these barrels of even the same product. Sister barrels right next to each other. They can taste vastly different. So please, whatever I say in this video, take with a grain of salt, taste for yourself, especially if you have a different barrel than I do, and I'm imagining that would be the case. These can taste wildly different. So with that kind of disclaimer out there, let's now move into some of these comparisons. And I think the first place I want to go with this is I want to compare this to last year's 2023 10-year bourbon, specifically an A barrel. So let's get into this very quickly. Let me give you the quickest version of this story that I can. There was a lot of speculation last year that of the 2023 single barrels that came out, again, single barrels, not batches, they do come out different months, they're bottled different months, and that is denoted on the neck tag by the letter. So A means January. It was bottled in January. B would be February, and so on and so forth. There was some speculation that the A barrels last year were better barrels than anything else that came out throughout the year, and the reason for that is unknown, and we're not going to speculate about why that could be in this video. Now, I tested this theory on a live stream a few months back. We did a blind flight of 6 different Michter's 10-year bourbons from 2023. I had 3 A barrels, 2 D barrels, and 1 E barrel. And lo and behold, at the end of that flight, all 3 A barrels handily came out on top. And I would say that there was a humongous chasm between the A barrels, and which were the top 3, and then places 4, 5, and 6 in that blind. It was not a close comparison. Now, there still were differences and a decent amount of variance between those A barrels, but it did feel like I was tasting 2 not entirely different products. I mean, you can tell the relationship between them, but it did feel like I was tasting maybe a $250 product versus a $150 product. There's a better comparison, but I'm not thinking of it right now. So I do think there was credence to that theory of the A barrels being better. Why is that? Are they older? Were they aged higher up? I have no idea, but there was just a lot more flavor packed in, more richness, and this kind of dusty bourbon note that I love, and I think so many others out there love as well. So why am I saying all of this? Because the 2023 that I've got here is an A barrel, and this is a ridiculously good A barrel. It is barrel 23A0027. Fantastic stuff, and we're going to compare that first. Then we're going to get into the E barrel, which was actually the last place barrel in my blind flight of 6 from a few months ago, and of course the 1924. So now let's do this quick comparison: 2024 and the 2023 A barrel. And I mean, it's not close. On the nose, the 2023 A barrel is humongously rich butterscotch, the creamiest, richest vanilla note you can imagine. Just like really dark cherry kind of notes. Yeah, and overall, it just feels like if this is 94.4 proof, the 2024, which it is, if I did this in a blind, I would call this 105 proof. It feels like there's that much more intensity on the nose. All right, so onto the palate now. Yeah. So enveloping, full, oily on the palate. Unbelievable stuff. So I would say that, again, just like last year, there is a very big gap or chasm or whatever you want to say from this 2024 A barrel, which I don't know that that's going to have any relevance this year. I guess we'll find out. There's a big, big difference between this and last year's A barrel. The interesting part about this, though, is that if you look at the barrel numbers, I don't know how these relate year to year, but the barrel numbers are like pretty similar. I mean, this 2024 is 0074 and the 23 is 0027. Very close. And I don't know if these are like pulled from the same lots or if that number resets every year. I have absolutely no idea, but it's interesting to think about nonetheless. So with that said, let's go ahead and check out the comparison from the 2024 now to the 2023 E barrel, which again was my last place finisher in that blind flight. So 2024 again, one more time. Get that on the palate, acclimate to it, reset. And now on to the E barrel from last year. Yeah, they smell very, very similar. The E barrel from last year, a little bit darker, maybe more dark fruits, like plummy, kind of grapey notes. But overall, I would say these things are very similar. Yeah, last year's E barrel, certainly darker, even more chocolate on that. This year with that kind of peach ring apricot note, it does sit on the brighter side of things. So let's taste last year's E barrel now. Now, I will say, on the palate, the E barrel actually falls short in comparison to this 2024. The 2024 is somewhere between last year's really, really great barrels and last year's not so great barrels. So that's good news. I feel like, you know, not everything can be as outstanding as last year's A barrels for whatever reason, you know, whatever the case may be, whatever's going on with those. Not everything can be that good, but at least we're kind of somewhere in the middle with this product, and that does give me hope. That does excite me. But again, I will say, when it comes down to pricing on these, I can't see myself wanting to pay really above SRP for this 2024, this particular barrel. Whereas, I hate to say this, but I've purchased probably 4 or 5 of these A barrels on secondary from last year for like between $400 and $450. I know people are going to balk at that. They're going to, you know, hate the fact that I buy that stuff on secondary for that price. I'm not encouraging you to do that, but to me, it does kind of demonstrate how much I value this whiskey in comparison to the 2024. And now, last but not least, let's get on to this 1924 comparison, because for me, I think if this 1924 could be a decent substitute for this year's Michters 10 at, you know, $60, $70 less, this would be a great way to go. It's also going to be easier to find. It's going to be less money, all that. So on to this 1924 now on the nose. All right, and the 1924, much rougher around the edges, a little more peppery, a little more barrel char, kind of darker, slightly more bitter overall, and certainly more of that Old Forester yeast note. So I would say, just generally speaking on the nose, it's more brash, more intense, a little less refined. 2024 now. Yeah, this is just a little more easygoing, refined, light, airy, sweet, all those things I described it as. 1924 on the palate. All right, so the big yeast note on that 1924 makes it feel young in comparison to the Michter's 10-year. So with that said, I don't know that this 1924 is a great substitute for the Michter's 10. I think they kind of exist in different categories for me. I guess maybe if your barrel is different than mine, maybe it could relate a bit more to that 1924. The working theory, again, being that the Michter's is sourced Brown-Forman and that these things might have a relationship. I don't think it's that close. Do I recommend the Michter's 10-year bourbon for 2024, though? I don't think so. I think you can do better for less. I'm not saying that Eagle Rare is going to get you there. I'm not saying Russell's 10 is going to get you there. They are different profiles, but with the massive amount of whiskey hitting the market these days, I just don't see this price point, $180 or so, for this Michter's 10-year bourbon. I don't see it making sense in the market. Last year, those A barrels, those freakish barrels that I've tasted, those stand alone. Those are one-off situations. It seems like, I guess if I taste a bunch more 2024 A barrels and they end up being the same way, I will totally post a new video, talk about it on the live stream, whatever the case may be. But as of now, this is very good whiskey. If it was priced lower, if this was $100, I could be recommending it all day. But at $180, that's the cheapest you're going to find it for. I say that's the most you should pay for it, and I would not be buying these on secondary. So that is going to do it. Thanks for tuning in for this review. I know it was long. I know it was probably unedited. I'm doing that in an attempt to get more content out there very quickly after this, slight break on the channel. So let me know in the comments what you think, if you've tried any of these 2024 A barrels, or I guess if there's B or C barrels. Whatever you've tried, let me know. I would also be curious to kind of hear your thoughts on all of this 2023 controversy about the different A barrels. Are they better? Are they the same? For me, I think they are a little bit better. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, check out the Patreon. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you next time here on Drums and Drams.